Can everyone see my screen? Yeah, good. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining in this evening, and I'll post this once it's done, once we finish the session. So hope everything's going well. Just wanted to touch base briefly and go over a few things. This module that we're on right now, it's talking about identification evaluation process. So this week's kind of focusing on the initial evaluation and looking at the evaluation process and or reevaluation. So this PowerPoint that I've shared here, I'm not going to go through every screen, but I mainly wanted to share briefly this particular slide, go over it because it's got a really good graphic of just how the process works on initial. Reeval is a little bit different, and I'll talk briefly about that as well. So you look at your initial, basically, you start off with a referral process, and really up until that time to where you start that referral, there's already probably been some things going on with the gen ed teachers. They're suspecting some things, been kind of monitoring that student's progress, maybe trying some interventions within the room to see if that would make any type of difference, and the student's still not having success in there. So then we kind of start that referral process, and through that you've received information from screenings, the general ed teacher. Again, I just mentioned the intervention process, and even by that time you've had discussions, or the gen ed teacher was, with that parent, and they decided, hey, it's time to request this process. And so you initiate that, the process starts. Parents' rights are also provided at the time of the referral, so they understand. And you guys, I'm sure, have you seen the parent rights packet? Very lengthy, right? Very lengthy, very detailed. So we do that, and then there's written notice, consent is obtained, and then you schedule the evaluation to be conducted. Oftentimes, depending on if you're in a district where maybe those services are contracted, that individual's availability, that evaluation may not happen immediately within just a few days or even a week. It may be delayed. Again, as long as you stay within the window on your time frame to get that done, you'll be fine. But also knowing there is a shortage of either school psychs or psychometrists out there. If your district doesn't have one employed full time and you contract, that could be a factor. So that process starts, the initial testing. So I don't know how many of you guys have been involved in that process yet, or kind of got to observe it, or even kind of see how the assessment, the testing session itself works. So you have the school psych or the psychometrist come in, and depending on the age of the child, I know when I was and still doing a lot of testing, oftentimes the younger the child, the more sessions we'll kind of break that up into, because the assessment process is very, very intensive, and the younger the student is, they tend to wear out more quickly. And as an evaluator, we want to get a good, valid test and a valid score to determine if that student's going to qualify for services. So once we conduct the full evaluation, the screening, then the psychometrist or the school psych will go back, do the diagnostics on the test, score it, review the statistical information, and then determine and review discrepancies to see if the student's going to meet qualifications for services. And so that individual, as an examiner, is going to provide all that, put it into a comprehensive formalized report. I don't know if you guys have seen that yet in your experience, or even said in a MEEGS meeting. A lot of data, a lot of information in a short amount of time. It's pretty overwhelming. Can be for the parent as well. So that individual comes in and presents to the team, and then discussions take place to determine, is that child eligible and consent to move forward and develop that IEP, or is the child not eligible if they don't meet the eligibility requirements, meaning there's not enough of a discrepancy between the child's overall intellectual ability compared to all the scores on on the subtest, are we seeing a wide range of discrepancies on the scores? If we don't see that, it tells us that child's not eligible. Then we need to determine other interventions that can be planned or developed. So it is a process, very, very lengthy. It takes some time to do that. And oftentimes the parents, they might not understand that process. They may think, hey, I signed the consent. We can get them tested in the next 2 days, and this is going to be a quick fix. And it doesn't always happen that way. So it's really important when you initiate that process, make sure that parent understands that, hey, this is a process. It may take a few weeks to get this done from start to finish. So have you, the ones that are on here tonight, have you got to experience some of this process and see how it evolves from, I see Stephanie's hand going up. So you can see it takes time, right? It takes time. And like if you, at the beginning of a school year, you as the general ed teacher can already maybe suspect, say, hey, maybe this child has some deficiencies here, and they start the process before they even have the discussion with the special ed teacher to see if we can start testing. So from start to finish, you could be looking upward of a semester easily before everything evolves and finishes up. So it's a process. Any questions on how that process works or anything there as far as based on that graph? I would encourage you to go through and look at the PowerPoint that's on here. I don't want to sit here and read everything to you. There's quite a bit of information, but it's detailed and broken down to help explain some things to you, especially your timeline on how many days you have from the consent in order until you get the test done. And then after the test is explained, the assessment in the MEGS meeting, how many days have to develop and write that IEP after eligibility determination is determined. So make sure you stay within those dates, because that does become an issue later on. Again, everyone understands who all the team is, involves the parents, SPED teacher, gen ed teacher, principal, school psych or psychometrist, and anyone else that has knowledge and testing that's needed to determine intervention or determine qualifications. Within that team, you may bring in other individuals, like maybe a behavioral interventionist that has been working with that student, or the speech language pathologist. You want to bring all those in that maybe have provided services to either rule out or use those factors to determine eligibility, whether it's a speech path, OT, or PT. So any questions on that, kind of the process and the procedures? Again, I would challenge you to go through and look at that. I know our time's kind of limited this evening, but I just kind of wanted to review that flow chart on how that works. So the next thing I kind of want to go over with you is what all is kind of covered this week, expectations. Really, as far as any major assignment due, really the only thing that we'll be doing that's coming up the 20th is the discussion board for you this week, and then looking ahead at next week, once we get into services that are offered for free and appropriate education, there is a reflective paper that'll be due from the Raleigh standard and how it can impact educational services. So that's looking ahead even a week. But for this week, it's mainly your discussion board post and then the response to classmates. So does anyone have a question on that? On the evaluation process or reeval? Looking at kind of jumping ahead real quick on reevaluation, have you experienced that process yet in determining whether or not we're going to do it? Okay, I see some yes and some no. Okay, so it's kind of comes up to a team decision. Is it a have to or a required deal to do a reeval after 3 years? Anybody know an answer on that? Not necessarily. You don't have to do a reeval. That's something that can be discussed and determined, set in meetings where they determine at that point in time it was not necessary to do it, or the parent really did not want to request that reeval be completed after 3 years. And then they continue servicing, they update the IEP, move on. And then after another 3 years comes up, due to the length of time, then the team may deem that it's necessary to go in and do a reeval to see if those discrepancies and deficiencies have broadened as far as their skills, to see if that weakness has increased with age as they gotten older, and also the content in the curriculum has increased. So something to kind of watch through your experiences throughout this year as you're sitting in some meetings as reevaluation comes up. Some may be reevaluated and some may not. So it's not a have to deal. So just keep that in mind when you go into your meetings. I'm going to stop my screen share. Is there any question over that flow chart and just some of the things I went over as far as initial evaluation and the reeval, what it would entail? Have you experienced anything yet this year to where you've seen a significant delay for whatever reason? I know sometimes COVID has been a factor in trying to get your testing done in the required time from when you initiate that referral and getting the test done, whether you have limited resources. Do most of your schools that you're employed in contract that service out, or do you have a full-time individual that is qualified as an examiner?
Yeah, full-time. Like we have full-time PT, full-time OT, speech path.
Okay.
Like, and then since we're the gen ed and the SPED teacher for our own classrooms,
Okay.
we do a lot of the testing ourselves.
Okay. All right. Good.
We're the same way that Stephanie is. I'm at a diagnostic preschool, so everything is in-house full-time. Sure. And then I'm the SPED teacher and the gen ed teacher for
that makes it nice when you have those qualified individuals within. I know a lot of times in your smaller schools out in the rural settings, they may not be able to employ those examiners full-time, and they have to contract that service out and share that individual with multiple districts. So sometimes it becomes a scheduling and logistics issue, and then you throw COVID and the disruption of school due to quarantines or having to shut down. So that does become an issue with some schools. Tanya, what about you, where you're at? Do you guys have full-time on staff, or do you have to contract those services?
We have full-time on staff.
Good. Good. Megan, what about you and Hannah? Are you in a district where they employ them, or?
No, we don't have full-time staff.
Okay, so you have to
We're kind of limited on our resources, honestly.
Yeah, and that happens. Are you in a smaller district, maybe? Okay, and that's common. That's common. Where I was at in the district I served in for 27 years, that's what we had to do. We belonged to a cooperative, and we had to share those resources. And if the school psych was scheduled, if their schedule was booked up, we had to resort to contracting outside services to bring them in to get those assessments done in that timely manner. So that's not uncommon for your smaller district. Hannah, what about you?
We're part of the co-op.
Okay.
So like I'm in the part of the co-op where we actually run it. We're in charge of it, and then.
Okay. So you're essentially, your district is considered the LEA then, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. So most of you have those resources available to where you can have the examiners take care of the diagnostics on it then, with the exception of Megan's district. So it really hadn't been an issue for you then up to this point in time. That was done. Okay. Any other questions on anything coming up or dealing with the reevals or initials? Everyone's quiet tonight. They're worn out, huh? Looking ahead, or anything that we've covered, do you have any questions we need to go back and revisit, or anything that's been done up to this point, or anything I could clarify for you? No? Everyone's good. Okay. I don't want to keep you for just the sake of keeping you. If everyone feels good and comfortable, I'll let you guys go. If again, I'll remind you, if you have questions on assignments or discussions coming up, just email me. As always, I told you I check those early in the morning, and I come back and review those again in the afternoon, late afternoon, sometime after 5, and can catch you on that backside. So if there's nothing else, or you guys have any specific questions, we'll go ahead and let you guys go for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay warm.
you.
Stay healthy. Thank you, guys.